Hello everybody, I am Pawan Patil, a student studying in second year pursuing my computer science and engineering. And in this video, we are going to learn about operating systems, various types of operating systems, and a difference between the computer's desktop and our mobile operating system. So these are our contents for today. Now let's see what is an operating system. It can be said to be a specialized computer software which acts as an interface between both the hardware and the software which is running in your system. It can also be said to be an interface between the user and the system. Talking about the importance, the OS helps us to communicate with the computer without learning its language, meaning it acts as a translator for you to translate your words into the computer's binary language. And it also provides an environment for the applications to run and perform their task. Now, let's see what is a task of operating systems. Now, generally, these fall into 6 categories, which are the first one, process management, meaning the operating system manages all the processor-based tasks which is running in our computer. Second is our memory management. In this, the OS manages all the memory based, or when we talk about memory, we mean the main memory or RAM, and it handles all the RAM based management. Third one, the device management. Here the OS manages all the interfaces, both the input and output devices as well. Fourth one is our storage management. As we know, storage is very critical for an operating system to run and perform its task. So it manages the storage based problems as well. Then lastly, the application and user interface. So without an interface, the user can't communicate with the device, and the operating system holds responsible for managing these interfaces. Then we are seeing about types of operating systems. Now, when I talk about the types, there are some people who may get confused between the types and the brands of the operating systems. Because when I say about the brands, I mean the Windows, Mac, and Linux operating systems. Whereas when I talk about the types, I mean the single tasking operating systems, the multitasking operating systems. These are based on the number of tasks the operating system can perform. Then based on the amount of user usage, we have single user and multi-user operating systems. Example, MS-DOS, Windows 98, Macintosh, etc. Then our embedded operating systems, where we have a small chip where the operating system is placed in a larger device. Example, our ATMs. Then the real-time operating systems, example in our airline traffic control systems, where we need real-time information about the flights which are entering and exiting the airport. Then distributed operating systems. These are basically used in workstations to manage and perform other tasks in workstations. Now, when we are talking about software, we normally get two types of software. First one is the open source, second one is the proprietary one. Now, talking about open source, as the name suggests, its source code is open to the public for access, usage, and modification. This code can be seen by both the users and the organization who has implemented the software. Then the price for such softwares are very less, and there are no restrictions on users for its usability and modification. Some examples for these are our Firefox, OpenOffice, Android, etc. Now, since these are open source, we have a large community of people which are giving their support for such softwares, which gives them a boost for productivity, creativity, and connectivity. Now, the closed source or proprietary softwares. These are softwares whose source code are closed, meaning both the public and a normal user have no access to its code, and it is protected by a key or license, meaning only the individual or organization who has created these softwares can access it. Now, there is a huge price for such softwares, and the user who wants to use this softwares must have a valid authentication license to use it. Now, since it is closed software, it puts a lot of restrictions on the user for its usability and modification. Some examples for these are our Skype, Adobe Flash Player, Microsoft Office, Microsoft Windows, Mac OS, etc. Now, as we know, these are paid, and mostly companies hire a group of people for such software creation. And so, unlike the open source community, these have a smaller community base. But as we know, a company hires them, these guys are professional. Now, talking about the user interface, the user interface or UI refers to the part of an operating system, program, or device which allows a user to enter and receive information from that device. Now, there are various types of user interfaces. Now, first one is our graphical user interface, such as the Windows OS UI, which we have in our systems. Then for Android, we have many UI, such as our Color OS. Then we have our Xiaomi's and MyUI, many more. Our command line user interface, such as our Google prompts, then our PowerShell, etc., which are available in both Linux and Windows. Then we have many more, such as menu-driven user interface, touch user interface, natural level language interface, form-based user interface, along with voice user interface. Now, the voice user interface is mainly used for our smart devices such as our Alexa and many other. Now, talking about desktop operating systems. Now, a desktop OS is an environment where a user manages his or her personal computer, and the desktop OS helps in management of both the system's hardware and software resources. We have many examples for such operating systems, which are our Windows, Mac, Unix, Linux, etc. Now, not only these softwares, but when you try to buy or use or install such softwares, we mainly get it in two variants, which are the 32-bit and the 64-bit variants. Now, this refers to the amount of data or information which your CPU can easily process when performing an operation. Now, when installing these devices, these variants put a lot of matter, because a 64-bit variant can't work in a 32-bit variant system, but the 32-bit variant can work on a 64-bit variant system. Talking about the Unix operating systems, the Unix was originally written in assembly language, and it is a diverse group of operating systems which has several subcategories, including the BSD and Linux. It was first developed in 1960 by Ken Thompson, Dennis Ritchie, who is also the developer of C, and others at AT&T Laboratories. And the Unix OS is basically made up of three parts: the kernel, the shell, and the programs. Now, these was originally developed for mini computers, but we have also a desktop or a laptop variant as well, which is also said here as the ported to various hardware platforms. Now, Unix has a great reputation for its stability, its security, and scalability as well. Now, talking about Mac OS. Now, a Mac OS is a Unix-based operating system which is developed and operated by Apple Incorporation since 2001, and is the most primary based operating systems for Mac's own Mac computers. Now, within the market of desktop and laptop both, it is the second most widely used operating system after our Linux and Windows. Now, the abbreviation for Mac OS stands for Macintosh Operating Systems, and these operating systems are really quick and responsive as the OS is very optimized to its hardware. Now, the Apple releases a new version of Mac OS approximately every year, with its latest release in the year of 2023, June 5, called Sonoma. Now, let's begin to Linux. When we think about Linux, we get an image of hackers or an ethical guy trying to hack each other's computers, but that is based on the distribution as well. Now, let's see what is Linux. Linux is an open license model whose kernel code is available for everybody for study and modification. Now, it resulted in a wide use range of these for computing machinery, from supercomputers to smartwatches. Now, here's a fact that the Linux OS is used in the top supercomputers available. Now, the Linux kernel is also in some popular distributions such as our Red Hat, Debian, Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Google's Android, etc. Now, the problem with open license softwares are that, especially operating systems, are that we have a lot of variants, making it harder for the user to choose upon his need. Now, another fact that Slackware is the oldest distribution of Linux to be developed until this time. Talking about Windows OS. Now, the Windows OS is a group of proprietary graphical operating system families which is developed and marketed by Microsoft, with its first version released in November 20 of 1985 as a graphical operating system shell for MS-DOS. Now, this is the reason why we get MS-DOS based command prompts in our Windows till this time. Now, the Microsoft Windows is also available in various flavors, which includes the most favorite of the people, which was Windows XP, Vista, Windows 95, Windows 7, Windows 10, and the latest Windows 11. Now, when Windows XP was released, it was made with a standard x86 hardware, which included both our AMD and Intel processors, which resulted that it could run on various hardwares, including HP, Dell, and Sony. Now, the latest version of Windows is Windows 11, which supports the integration of Android apps officially. Now, when you try to download Windows operating system software of any version like Windows 8, Windows 10, Windows 11, you are offered with various versions like Windows Pro, Windows Home, Windows Education, which targets specific people and system requirements. Now, talking about mobile operating systems. A mobile operating system is the one that helps us to run application software on mobile devices, and very like computer operating systems of Windows and Linux, they are almost the same way, but they are very light and simple to some extent. Now, some of operating systems which we use in our smartphones are our iPhone OS, BlackBerry OS, Windows Mobile OS, which was not very used, so it was then transferred in our desktop and laptops versions, so called by Windows 8, then Android, etc. Now, the benefit of mobile operating system is that it combines both our beauty of computer and hand-used devices and provides us with a cellular built-in modem and SIM tray for telephony and internet connections. But the downside of using mobile or a mobile operating system is that the manufacturing company who manufactures your device chooses the operating system for you, whereas in case of Windows operating system, the user is free to use his own operating system. Now talking about Android OS, the most used OS. The Android is a mobile operating system based on the modified version of Linux and is open source software which is designed primarily for touchscreen devices such as smartphones and tablets. It was developed by Google with its first Android device launching in the year of 2008. Now, the Android operating system is an but open source software, but most devices run on a proprietary Android version which was developed by Google. And with it, we get additional proprietary closed source software pre-installed, such as our Google Play mobile services, which includes apps such as Google Chrome, digital distribution platforms, Google Play, and associated Google Play services for that platform. Talking about iPhones, the iPhone is a line of smartphones produced by Apple Incorporation for its own iOS mobile operating using its own iPhone's iOS mobile operating system. The first generation of iPhone was announced by the Apple's CEO Steve Jobs on January 9 of 2007. It was the first phone to use the multi-touch technology, and since the iPhone's launch, it has gained larger screen size with features like video recording, waterproofing, etc. Now, iPhone is one of the two largest smartphone platforms in the world alongside Android. Windows Mobile OS. The Windows Mobile OS is an operating system that was developed by Microsoft for Pocket PCs and smartphones. Now, Windows Phone was a discontinued family of mobile OS developed by Microsoft for smartphones as his replacement successor to Windows Mobile. Now, the Windows Phone featured a new interface derived from the Metro design language, and due to its discontinuity in mobile OS, it was relaunched as Windows 8 for the desktop and laptop users. Now, finally, coming to our difference between desktop and Android OS, let's see with its uses. The mobile OS provides wireless network connectivity along with telephone features on handheld devices, whereas desktop OS main function is to manage both our software and hardware. Now, talking about terms of storage space required, the mobile OS requires a really lot less space compared to our desktop OS. In terms of booting time, the mobile OS boots a lot faster than desktop OS. And in terms of storage devices, we use flash drives to store our information on mobile OS, but we use both the hard disk and flash drives to store information on desktop OS, because as we know, the size of desktop OS is quite larger than the size of mobile OS. In terms of primary memory, our mobile OS requires RAM to work. It needs some minimum RAM requirement, whereas the desktop OS requires a lot more RAM than the mobile OS to operate. Talking about requirements, we have less requirements in terms of mobile OS. Then the desktop OS requires a lot more requirements like drivers, buffers, and many other things. Talking about input devices, the input for mobile is given by touchscreen using inbuilt keypads, whereas we use devices like mouse, keyboard as input devices for our desktop. Talking about functionality, the functionalities in mobile OS is very limited when compared to that of our desktop. Talking about our usage, we use mobile OS in smartphones and smartwatches, whereas we use desktop OS in desktops, laptops, and servers as well. Talking about power consumption, the mobile OS is optimized to work under minimal power needs and has a feature to prevent energy loss, which is also our battery saver mode. And the desktop OS is not readily optimized for energy loss, except our laptops, which not very much optimized to work under less power, but yes, it does have a battery. meaning it put a cap on the power available to use. Now talking about some examples, we have Apple iOS, Google's Android, Palm OS, etc. for mobile OS, whereas we have Windows 10, Mac OS, Linux, Windows Vista for desktop OS. Now, this was the end of this video. I hope you like it. I'll see you in the next one.